In several ancient esoteric traditions, the soul's journey after death takes the form of an escape attempt. As the light rises, it strikes an impenetrable barrier, a cosmic grid designed to keep it trapped in the material world. By the medieval period, this trap was mapped with high precision within post-Lurianic Kabbalah. Known as the Qliphotic zodiac, this system of demonic husks acts as a series of blockades designed to prevent the soul from ascending the tree of life. Further back in history, in the marshes of the Middle East, the Mandaeans practice an esoteric religion born in the intellectual ferment of late antiquity. Culturally and chronologically, they developed independently from the later traditions of medieval Jewish mysticism. Yet the foundational texts of both communities describe the exact same specific hierarchy, a council of 12 evil rulers governing the zodiac. While these traditions use different vocabularies, they operate on identical mechanical frameworks. The demons occupied the same cosmic real estate. By stripping away mythic language, we examine the pure engineering of these astral prisons. When aligned, the blueprints match exactly. This structural duplication reveals that the Qliphotic system is an adaptation of a much older, imported operational blueprint. The core theological text of the Mandaeans, the Ginza Rubba, describes the material cosmos as a highly structured holding cell. We can draw the geometry the Ginza describes starting with a central node, the material heavens. Expanding outward from that center, the first layer of obstruction consists of the 7 planetary tyrants. Beyond the planets, the system locks down the zodiacal gates using 12 specific watch stations, which the Mandaeans call the Matarta. The architecture grows even more granular, with exactly 365 sub-spirits acting as wardens. This grid functions as a security system. A soul attempting to ascend faces an aggressive interrogation, requiring it to pass a demonic ruler and pay a toll at every gate. The Ginza Rubba presents this not as abstract mythology, but as a mechanized numerical sequence for the imprisonment of the soul. Centuries later, the post-Lurianic magical systems of the medieval period describe a mirrored structure. Diagramming the Sitra Achra, the other side, begins with a jagged central node, a husk trapping divine sparks within the material plane. Surrounding this central point are 7 planetary layers of corrupted husks, known as the Qliphoth. The system is sealed by 12 Qliphotic princes, each ruling a zodiacal shell. Grimoires from this period populate these shells with exactly 365 unclean spirits. The dark side of the Tree of Life mirrors the Mandaean model. As a spark attempts to rise, it must face a specific ordeal at each of these 12 boundaries. Comparing the parameters of the two systems reveals a precise mathematical parity. Both rely on 12 celestial gates governed by 12 hostile princes. Both systems feature 7 planetary tyrants, 365 sub-spirits, and a mandatory sequence of tolls and ordeals to maintain the blockage. The Qliphotic zodiac is functionally identical to the Mandaean watch stations. These systems share an identical engine, distinguished only by their cultural terminology. Despite these identical metrics, there is no evidence that medieval Kabbalists directly copied Mandaean texts. The connection exists because both traditions drew from a shared intellectual ecosystem. In late antiquity, the Middle East was a multilingual melting pot of magical and dualistic thought. This pool combined Babylonian astral religion with the cosmic pessimism of Gnostic dualism and early Hermetic planetary hierarchies. The Mandaeans represent a direct branch of this source material, codifying these ideas into the Ginza Rubba while living at the center of the region where they originated. Those same concepts took a more winding route downstream. Carried through centuries of Syriac and Aramaic cosmology, this specific numerical architecture eventually reached medieval Jewish mysticism. These frameworks were born in a specific physical geography. The mud brick cities of Mesopotamia produced the original taxonomy of zodiacal spirits used by both systems. The blueprints perfectly match because they both integrated the exact same regional Mesopotamian logic at different points in history. The concept of stars as hostile gatekeepers was the standard operating system for much of the ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern world. Looking closely at the data reveals the footprint of that ancient design. 12 outer rulers, 7 planets, and 365 spirits. The Klepothic zodiac, as it appears in Western esotericism, is a downstream iteration of this much older architecture. Mandaeism provides a living window into the foundational mechanics of Western magic, preserving a continuous tradition since antiquity. Mandaean zodiacal demonology remains the oldest intact ancestor of the Klepothic framework. The two systems operate as the same architectural prison, engineered to the same specifications under different mythic names. This is the Jordan River. Geographically, it is a vital waterway in the Levant, carving through a dry landscape. Standard theological interpretations treat this river as a literal, physical boundary, where crossing represents a migration from one side of a map to the other. But in ancient Near Eastern esoteric traditions, the Jordan functions not as a literal river, but as an architectural cosmic boundary. Reading these texts as historical geography overlooks the structural architecture of the cosmos they are mapping. The esoteric text Esh Mezareph provides a cipher for this architecture, describing Naaman coming from the north to reach the river. The text identifies the etymology of the word Jordan as a combination of jar, meaning river, and din, meaning judgment. This river of judgment describes the boundary separating the divine realm from the material universe. Mandaean cosmology uses the term Yardna Rabbah, or the Great Jordan of Light, to define this same cosmic threshold. Translating this geographical term through its esoteric roots applies the text to a mystical coordinate system. To understand this map, we must examine Mandaean spatial orientation, which relies on a vertical axis. The top pole is north, identified as the world of light and the origin point of absolute purity. The Dmuta, the soul's divine double, resides at this northern coordinate. The bottom pole is south, representing Tabil, or earth, the domain of material mixture and limitation. The celestial Jordan forms the boundary line separating these incompatible states of existence. In this system, north and south act as structural coordinates for the soul's origin and its material exile. Mandaean priests emulate this cosmic architecture during their rituals. Stepping into physical water is intended to intersect with the northern cosmic current of light. The ritual space creates a temporary suspension of the boundary between Tibble and the world of light. Ritual serves as a method of applying cosmology, using physical water as a proxy to access the celestial architecture. Naaman the Syrian serves as an archetype for the soul descending from the north. The soul crosses the Jordan boundary to enter the material world. In this context, leprosy describes a condition of the soul rather than a biological disease. Leprosy functions as a cipher for astral contamination, the impurity the soul acquires through mixture with the material south. Returning north requires the soul to bypass the Archons, the planetary tyrants guarding the gates of ascent. Just as Mandaean ascent requires 7 immersions to cleanse the soul, the biblical instruction for Naaman to wash 7 times describes a passage through 7 planetary gates. This ascent begins by breaking the 7 cosmic seals. The soul undergoes 7 purifications as it climbs the axis. With each gate passed, a layer of astral contamination is removed. The ascending soul eventually arrives back at the river of judgment. The cosmic current acts as the final judge, rejecting material mixture and allowing only absolute purity to pass back into the north. Structurally mapping these points provides a technical schematic for the soul's salvation. This framework extends to other systems of comparative esoteric architecture. We can align this with the Kabbalistic tree of life. The Kabbalistic abyss is a veil situated just below the divine triad of Kether, Chokmah, and Bina. Both the Jordan of Light and the Kabbalistic abyss occupy the identical structural threshold, the interface between the divine source and the world of mixture. The description of the river flowing from the north mirrors the descent of divine emanation from the supernal triad. A third alignment appears in Gnostic cosmology at the boundary of the pleroma. The Gnostic Ogdoad maps to this universal threshold. These traditions use different vocabularies to describe the same initiatory choke point. This master diagram visualizes the structural identity shared by biblical esotericism, Mandaean cosmology, and Kabbalistic mysticism. The Jordan and the abyss represent the same cosmic coordinate. This alignment provides a framework for interpreting ancient texts through their underlying architecture. The geographic language used in these ancient esoteric texts functions as a precise guide to the true orientation of the soul. Viewed through this lens, the texts provide the structural coordinates for the soul's ascent.